And before we get going here, folks, I'd like to give an acknowledgement of our traditional lands. So I'm on campus today at Royal Roads University, which is located on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. And it is with gratitude where we live, learn, and work here, where the past, present, and future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, staff, and faculty come together. So thank you all so much for being here today. And of course, folks, the reason we're all here is to explore the MSc and the MA in Environment and Management. So we're going to chat with Chris, Dr. Chris Ling, who's the professor and the
Hi,
program head.
everyone.
Hello, Chris. Thank you so much for being here. We're also joined by student Bojie Yang, and then perhaps Deanna a little bit later. My name's
Hello,
Ariana
everyone.
Konjerski. Hi, Bojie. My name's Ariana Konjerski. I'm an education specialist here at Royal Roads, and I also have my wonderful colleagues, Rhett and Andrea. Rhett's from the program, and then Andrea's from the enrollment advisors as well. And just a brief agenda, folks, before we get started here today. So I'll give us a brief overview of the Royal Roads University experience. And then Chris will give us some program information. We'll talk a little bit about the student experience and then admissions and how to apply. Then if you have any questions, you can ask them throughout in the chat as well. And I'll just give us a brief introduction of our space. So this is our beautiful campus here in Victoria, BC at Royal Roads. You'll see in the top left corner, this building may look familiar to you. That is our Hatley Castle. And this has been in many famous movies throughout the years. So from X-Men and Deadpool, many Disney films, all kinds of things there. That's on our campus. And then you'll see just to the right of that, we have our Japanese gardens. That's one of many gardens and green spaces here that we have on campus. We also have a beautiful migratory bird sanctuary. You'll see to the bottom left corner there, that's our Esquimalt Lagoon. And then we've also been doing our online and blended learning for many, many years now. So we have an homage kind of in the bottom right corner to our online and blended learning styles as well. And now if you're new to Rural Roads, you may ask yourself, why consider Rural Roads? So I just want to share with you some alumni statistics from a recent alumni survey that we did here. 93% of Rural Roads alumni say that we've positively influenced their personal and professional lives. 92% of alumni say that they felt supported by staff and faculty. And 90% say that we provided them with the tools and knowledge needed for a leadership role in the workplace. And 89% say that we provided them with the tools and knowledge needed to be innovative in the workplace. So some pretty good numbers there. And we're also proud, of course, to be in a Ashoka U certified Changemaker campus since 2019, which is an innovative approach to education that prepares students as they address world problems, encourage others, and act for the good of all. And at this point, folks, I will pass it off to Chris, who will kick us off with some program information. Chris.
Hi, yeah, and hi everybody, and welcome. And I'm just acknowledge that we've also been joined by Deanna Woods, who we're very pleased, Deanna, you managed to get in. So we do have our expected two students with us, so that's great. I'd maybe also point out that our program manager, Rhett, is also an alumni of the program, but we're going back a few years now. But I'm sure he'll be happy to share his experience if appropriate. As it says on the screen, we're happy to take questions as we go through the material. So if you do have one, either already or one is stimulated by the material, please just post it in the chat and we'll address it as we go along. Looks like we've got a mixture of folks here who are interested in probably both the on-campus program and also our blended version. So I'll make sure I cover both versions, just looking to see where folks are coming from. So I'm going to start by just giving a very brief overview of the program structure, covering the two versions of the program that we have. But first of all, who's the program for? Well, we like to say that everybody is connected to the environment in some way. And there aren't many, and the environmental field is the fastest growing sector of the economy in Canada, and is also a very important part of the economy globally and increasingly so. And so we're interested in meeting a variety of different folks and bringing them into our program. So that's both people who are already professionals working in the environmental field, but also those that are desiring to transition into the environmental field, either because that's becoming part of their job or because they feel they want to completely switch careers entirely. Most our students, already have certainly a passion or an interest or involved in environmental issues. If that's not through their work, a lot of people come in with environmental experience in their volunteer hours and in in other parts of their lives. And although the most obvious pathway is if you've got an undergraduate degree in an environmental subject, we also have many students that come into our program who either don't have a environmental degree or don't even have a degree at all through our flexible assessment program. So we're interested in sort of broadening the pool, or broadening the ability of anybody to come and join our program. So we encourage you, if you're unsure about whether you're qualified, is just to kind of check in with our enrollment advisors, and they'll be able to help you in understanding how your experience, both professional and academic, meets our needs. So we have, as I said, two versions of the program. We have the blended program, which takes just a bit more than 2 years to complete. A lot of the learning is delivered across 3 residencies, where you come to campus for a short period of time, 2 or 3 weeks, and have an intensive work term within that experience on campus, and then other courses are delivered online at other times of the year. The residencies are in fall. They're usually the first 3 weeks or the first 2 weeks of October, depending on which year you're in. And then the rest of the time you are focused on online learning and also your capstone projects. In the on-campus program, that's a more structured experience. There's less flexibility in terms of the courses you're able to take. All the courses are delivered on campus, with the possible exceptions depending on what you choose to do for your, what we call the capstone, so the completion pathway. But the content of the program is basically the same. It's just entirely delivered within the classroom rather than online, as our blended version is. And here are the courses that are in those 2 programs. As you'll see on the note, I'm not going to go through the whole list here. You can find this information on Royal Road's website without any trouble at all. The reason there's more courses listed for the on-campus version is there's more because the delivery in the classroom, there's fewer options for classroom courses at Royal Roads than online courses, so it's more designed. So all the courses which are in the on-campus program are also available in the blended version. It's just they'll be delivered online and are largely electives. Whereas on campus, that's the courses that are taught in the classroom. There are also additional elective courses in both programs, depending on for the blended version, whether you're in the MA or the MSc stream, or whether you're taking a major project or a research thesis, or a new capstone completion process that we've just introduced, which is to take one of our graduate certificates here at Royal Roads, if you prefer a more taught environment. Bojie and Deanna unfortunately won't be able to speak to that because no student has experienced that yet. So it's entirely new for the intake this March for the on-campus students. So just to talk a little bit more about those 3 options. So you take the curriculum, the courses, then we have 3 ways of completing your degree. So the first is to do a traditional academic thesis, which is a piece of research supervised by 2 faculty members, and then you get to ask your research question, carry out your research, and write your thesis. A major research project of 9 credits is similar in the sense that it's a standalone project that you take on yourself, but rather than trying to sort of take an academic path and creating new knowledge and understanding an issue, It's about applying solutions in a new context. So a lot of the people that take a major research project, they have identified a problem that exists in a practical sense in their experience, and they apply their knowledge they've got from the program to try to create a solution. And then the third new version, the graduate certificate, is we have a variety of interdisciplinary graduate certificates here at Royal Roads. So if you're interested in taking a more course-based completion for your master's program, or have a very specific topic area that we cover in one of our graduate certificates that you want to get more knowledge and experience on, that's the pathway for you. So three different ways of completing your program, depending on what you're seeking to get out of your degree and what you're seeking to apply in the real world. So that's a brief overview of the program. What I'd like to do now is introduce our two students, Bojie Yang and Deanna Woods. Bojie and Deanna, if you'd maybe like to give just a brief sort of couple of minutes introduction to yourself, why you came and did the MEM program, what your experience was like, and then hopefully folks here can type questions in the chat, and we'll for the students or me or anybody else, and we'll answer them as we go along. But Bojie, why don't you go first?
Yes, thank you, Chris. Hello, everyone. My name is Bojie, and I'm a student in MEM program, and also work on as a student engagement assistant, where I help to create a more connected and inclusive student experience here. So my background is media production and education management. And I spent years working in student affairs, leadership, and the community building. So before joining our program, I visited Canada many times, visited a lot of cities here. And this gave me the opportunity to observe how urbanization is shaping the environment in different regions. So back to China, I had already seen places that used to be forests transform into shopping malls, either residential areas in just a few years. And this got me thinking, how does rapid development impact urban forests and water resources, and also how to balance economic growth with environmental sustainability? So I wanted to explore these questions further, and that's what led me to the MEM program. That this is exactly places where I can combine my background in education and communication with the practical tools in environmental management. And I've been always passionate about the education and community engagement, but I realized the environmental management isn't just for scientists or policymakers, and it is also affects all of us. So I wanted to develop a deeper understanding of environmental policies and governance, data analysis for sustainability, and how to create practical solutions for environmental challenges. So this interdisciplinary approaches of our program was exactly what I wanted. I mean, it brings together the policy, governance, science, and sustainability, allowing me to apply my leadership and communication skills to the environmental field. So one of the best thing of the program, I mean, it's diverse range of topics. Let me tell you, like including sustainability, science management, system methods of environmental management, and of course the law and policies. But beyond the theory, I mean, the program truly emphasized the teamwork and hands-on learning. So in one course, I mean, we did a policy negotiation stimulation where we had to present governments, business, and environmental groups. So this gave us a real sense of how complex decision making. And another great experience I want to say was analyzing a real world legal case study, and we're learning how environmental policies are shaped. So these lessons helped us, especially international students, to realize environmental challenges aren't just about science; they also involve the law, governance, and community engagement. So alongside my studies, I also work as a student engagement assistant at Roll Roads. So a big thank you to Professor Chris Lane for recommending me for this role. And yes, I mean, this experience helped me see that environmental management isn't just about the policy, as I mentioned. It requires strong community engagement. That's why I also volunteer at the Swan Lake Nature Sanctuary when I help the students, the kids, to know more about environmental education and sustainability efforts. But at Royal Roads, I've also had the opportunity to organize various type of events. I mean, for this event, I helped the students create a welcoming space for students who from different background and different nationalities to connect to feel included. But I mean, this experience, I also learned something really important is about sustainability policies, environmental initiatives only work if people are engaged and involved, whether it's urban planning, climate change policies, or ecosystem conservation. Real change happens when governments, researchers, and communities work together, right? So this program has been more than just learning. It has helped me think critically about environmental challenges and gain hands-on experience in policies and governance, develop my leadership, the teamwork skills, build valuable connect with the experts and peers out or in our campus. So if you are thinking about joining our program or you've already registered our program, my advice is like to be open, learning from different disciplines, actively participate the discussion and the projects, build connections with the classmates, professors and the professionals, and find ways to apply what you learn in the real world situations. So yeah, I mean that's all what I really want to mention and share my experience. And thank you all for listening. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you very much, Bojie. And yeah, just to remind people, you're more than welcome to post questions in the chat for the students or myself. But now let's hear from Deanna. What was your experience in the MEM program like? How did you get to be with us?
Thanks, Chris. Sorry also everybody that I was a few minutes late. I was in a work meeting that ran over time, which is probably a good segue into why I picked this MEM program. I was at a stage in my career and my personal life and just sort of my life in general where I really felt like I wanted to upgrade my education, but I really was not in a position where I could leave the workforce and commit myself to a full-time graduate studies program. I also have like a young family, lots of kids, and I'm not in a position to move anywhere else to find like another part-time program that might suit my needs. But luckily, I found this program at Royal Roads, which happens to also be located in the same place where I live. I'm just on the Saanich Peninsula, but I was drawn to this program. I think for the flexibility, for the subject matter, and I think Bojie did a great job already of giving an overview of kind of what the program is all about. But I can speak personally that what mattered to me a lot was the cohort, like being in a cohort and having that blended model where we did get to spend 3 weeks. We got to do these 3 residencies, 3 weeks, and then 2 weeks for the last year. I got a lot of value out of those. You really get that concentrated time, that sort of real university experience when you're with a group of people, you're working on teams. It's really intense, but in a good way. And I got so much value out of that versus a fully remote program where I think I might not have connected as much with my classmates and made those relationships. And networking, obviously, which has already come in handy career-wise. One other thing that drew me to this program was the flexible admission policy. So I was accepted into this program under the flexible admissions policy because I've been in the workforce, sort of related work for, I guess, close to 15 years, but I never had an undergraduate degree completed. And this is Royal Roads is one of the few schools that will consider your professional experience and your applied experience as well as your educational experience when they make an admissions decision. So that's the reason I'm here, or that's the reason I joined the program, and it's been great. I wish it wasn't over.
Do you really mean you wish it wasn't over, Deanna?
I
Most
do.
people are quite relieved when they get to the end, but there you go.
I was feeling sad. I was feeling sad that my thesis is basically done and wishing that I could write another one. So,
Well, yeah, there's always space for that.
yes, I guess so.
All right. So thank you very much, guys. I've got as we haven't got any questions from the folks in the room, I just wondering if you could both comment on Deanna, you mentioned the cohort model and how valuable that is. Do you want to just give a little bit more information, both of you, about what the sort of classroom sort of environment is like and how that sort of is part of the experience?
Do you mean like when in residency?
Yeah, in residence, so or even sort of online as well in your case, but what that sort of cohort model means in terms of how that sort of plays out in the classroom.
Just trying to think of the best way to answer that. How it plays out in the classroom. I mean, I guess because I never went to university before this, I don't really have anything to compare it to. But yeah, I mean, it was a fairly small class. Well, I guess maybe our cohort might have been one of the bigger ones, actually. I think there were around 25 of us. One thing I'll say that I got a lot of value out of was that because it's a blended, because there's people who are doing an MSc as well as an MA in this program, you really get the benefit of learning from your peers who come from the opposite discipline. So for me, I was doing the MA, and I got put on teams with mostly scientists, which I found like fascinating. I got to learn so much from my mates, but I think I also got to contribute value with sort of the skills that I had that maybe aren't things that that they were particularly strong with. So I think that that is helpful not just for, learning more from other people, but also like when you consider the real world application and the teams we often work on professionally, they're not usually homogenous. You're usually working with all different types of people who have different backgrounds. And I think that having those two groups together really did enrich the classroom experience, especially when it came to like discussions. People's hands would go up, the scientists would have their sort of perspective on things, and then maybe like the more humanities people would have the human side, and it did create for really dynamic discussions. Not sure if that answers your question, Chris, but that was something that stuck out for me as being like a highlight for sure of the classroom experience.
Sure, yeah, and what's the difference? The difference between the blended version is we do have that dual stream. Bojie was in just an MA version on campus, but just to sort of, there were still quite a few people in your cohort, Bojie, I know, who had scientific backgrounds or even engineering backgrounds.
Yes.
So did that kind of, sort of difference of perspective play out in your discussions in your teams as well?
Yes. I mean, our cohort, we have more than 16 students, right? So we divide into two different cohorts, like B and A and B, and we keep learning about environment more than interactive, like, and personals. But I mean, the class was very engaging and teamwork focused. So with a mix of group discussion, case studies, and hands-on projects, I mean, it's really exciting, and our professor really supportive and encourage our participated. Most of the students from Asia, they used to be just quiet. They don't want to be engaged themselves. So I mean, the professor's really good at it to trigger our discussion and like open conversations, open-minded to embrace every topics, every class. So that's really appreciate that. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And there's a question in the chat, which is what are the major differences between the MSc Environmental Management and the MSc Environmental Practice program? For those people who on the call who might not be aware, we also have at Royal Roads an entirely online program called the Masters of Environmental Practice program. And in terms of the curriculum, there's a lot of overlap between the two. The main difference with the online program is obviously it's entirely online. Also, there are fewer completion options for that program. So you take either a research paper or a practicum rather than for us taking a thesis or a major project. So that the extent of your ability to do sort of self-directed research and such like is different. But the environmental practice program additionally is not designed as a cohort approach, so you won't be in the same, won't be in classes with the same people for the majority of the situation. There's less of a sort of course peer-to-peer environment possible in that context. So, if it does, of course, have the advantage in that it's entirely online, so you don't need to travel at all to the university, and so it's very accessible for people who are in places where that would be a challenge for them. And related to the blended program in terms of the length of the in-person sessions, as I think was noted on one of the slides, there's 3 what we call residencies. The first 2 are for 3 weeks, and the final one is for 2 weeks. So, and then you come to campus for those, and we kind of recommend that you treat those as sort of educational retreat. So, you can expect to be in the classroom, most days for most of the day. And then expectations are that you're available evenings, weekends, such like, for working on assignments and with your team. So it's quite an intensive experience. So hopefully that answered your question, Neve. Lillian asked, would there be any pathway for a student with an arts business management background to pursue the MSc track? I mean, not generally. I mean, I would have to say the actual content of the program doesn't really change much, whether you do an MA or an MSc in the blended program. There are like a couple of electives which are only available to MSc students and vice versa. I would question what the need for that would be if your interests up to this point have led you down a sort of arts business management track. There's not like you're going to be getting a heck of a lot of different content. For the vast majority of courses, you're in the same space as the MA students at the same time. That saying, if you do have substantial experience in your background that's comes from work experience and volunteering and things like that, it is possible you may have enough experience to be in the MSc stream. Obviously, I can't say categorically without seeing your application materials, but by and large, people with an arts business management background would be doing the MA. Because we don't provide that basic science training, we expect people who are coming into the MSc to already have that. So hopefully that answers that question, Lillian. And the residencies are the first 3 weeks in October. At least they have been for the last many years. So it's possible that'll change in the future. We've got no plans to do so, but it is worth knowing that if you go on campus for the residencies, that it usually coincides with 2 public holidays, one of which is Indigenous Peoples Day, and the other is Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, we have to therefore, we can't accommodate 2 holidays in the schedule, so we tend to unfortunately cancel Thanksgiving for everybody, which is very unfortunate, but we do try and sort of provide a little festivity on the campus for those folks who are there. Yeah, because it's the retreat nature of it, we have to kind of just plow through the weeks. All right, Bojie and Deanna, do you have any last comments you'd like to make before I hand back to Ariana to talk about the admissions process and such like?
No, not me.
Not me.
Okay. Oh yeah, Neve, absolutely. Please ask questions. That's what we're here for. So, is there a list of graduate certificates that would be? Yes, that is available on the program schedule that's listed on the website. I think that's up yet. As I say, it's so new that we're still working through the materials that we need for that. But if it isn't already up, it will be very soon. I know I just approved the new program schedules last week, so it might be there already, or if not, then it won't be long before they're up there. I'm afraid I can't recall them all off the top of my head, but they're things like science and policy of climate change, regenerative community development, I think it's called. Project management. There's definitely some others, but I can't recall them. Then a question from Kenneth. I'm an undergraduate degree holder in civil engineering with 0 experience. So we do require people coming to our graduate programs that they have work experience as part of their portfolio. If you have a undergraduate degree, you need to have 2 years relevant work experience. If you don't, and you're coming through flexible assessment like Deanna did, then you need, depending on what education you have, you need approximately 6 years of work experience that's relevant to the program. So if you have 0 experience, then unfortunately there's probably not an opportunity to come at this time. However, I should state that you are absolutely allowed to count volunteer experience or non-work experience that's relevant. So we often have a lot of people who come in and at least some of their experience comes from volunteering or other kind of activity that they've undertaken. And in terms of scholarships, we do, maybe Ariana, you could post the link to the financial aid and awards page, which has all that kind of information. There was another question. Oh yeah, Kevin. So is the MA potentially restricted within the environmental management workplace? Need to know the effort will not be met with. Not quite understanding the question there, Kevin. Oh, I see what you mean. So if you have an MA, are you going to be limited in the work that you can do? I mean, unfortunately, the answer to that question, in all honesty, has to be yes. But that restriction is definitely reducing over time as people see the merits of many of the sort of topics that are covered. And in terms of the experience, in terms of the education you get, it's not significantly different to the MSc anyway. So most employers do look more about the experience you've got and the fact you have a graduate degree. There are still some employers that it is true to say do look at whether it's an MSc or an MA, and that is unfortunate because actually it restricts them more than it restricts you as a student. I do not know if wildfire and land use issues in Western Canada would be like that at all. There are many reasons why it shouldn't, but I don't know at all, and that's the honest truth. But if you're working in policy or stakeholder engagement or any of those things which are so important in many of those wildfire and land use issues, we cover those in the program, and an MA would be entirely appropriate for those careers. So yeah, it's a nuanced question. I mean, it's perhaps worth noting that if you went to if you were in the UK and you went to Oxford or Cambridge, they only do MA, so it doesn't matter what subject you do, you get an MA. So it's like it's important to look at the content, not just the actual nomenclature of the degree. But I know, for example, in the oil and gas industry, sometimes you're even struggling with a MSc. They're wanting you to be all engineers. So and not seeing any other questions, but feel free to keep on posting. So Neve, yeah, the graduate cert would be, I mean, it might not be exactly the same tuition as the MSc as a whole, because some of the graduate certs take place in other schools which have slightly different tuition costs. So you're not charged, essentially, instead of being charged for a major project, you'd pay the tuition for the graduate certificate. So it will be, if not absolutely the same, it might potentially be less, it might be a little bit more, but it's going to be roughly the same as if you were doing a major research project or a thesis. All right, so I think maybe Ariana, we do have a couple of questions about admissions in there, so why not we get onto that bit?
That sounds good. Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, Deanna and Bojie, as well. That was fantastic. Really appreciate all that information. Let me just go ahead and reshare my screen here. And I'll just walk us through briefly some bits on how to apply. So if you are thinking about applying, I know we had some questions in the chat about like steps for the application and things like that. So I'll just go through a few things. So at Rural Roads, as Chris mentioned previously, we have two methods of admission. So we have standard admissions and we have flexible admissions, and those criteria are a little bit different. So I'll just explain both real quick. So for the standard admission stream, a 4-year or comparable undergraduate degree in a related field with a minimum GPA of a B from a recognized post-secondary institution, as well as Chris mentioned, at least 2 years of relevant work or volunteer experience. And you'll see a few notes there. Applicants who meet the degree requirement but not the GPA, you may be required to take a course called Academic Writing and Critical Thinking, which can actually be quite helpful. We hear lots of students that is a favorite to kind of set a good tone for your program.
Yeah, just to jump in there,
yeah.
We get lots of good reports about that. Deanna, I think you probably took that course, did you? Do you remember it? Was it helpful?
It was, yeah.
And we do, even if you're not required, it's open to everybody. If you do feel you need to brush up on your academic writing skills, if you've been out of education for a little while, as many of our students have been.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do APA, so it was very helpful for that specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks so much, Chris, for that, and Deanna as well. It's always good to have a first-person account of that as well. And then also students intending to pursue the MSc, as we mentioned, must possess a science-focused undergraduate degree. And just moving on to flexible admissions. So again, as we mentioned, if you do not have an undergraduate degree or if you don't have the GPA requirement or things like that, we also have the flexible admission stream. So this is one of my favorite things to talk about at Rural Roads. So for us, that looks like normally 6 years of relevant work experience or a combination of education and experience. And then again, that note about the academic writing and critical thinking. I'll also mention this is assessed on a case-by-case basis. So this is not like a sweeping statement of, you definitely have to apply for standard or flexible. This is just something when you submit your application, you can go in either of these streams, just depending on where you're at. And that's all assessed by our wonderful admissions advisors. And again, the note about a science-focused undergraduate degree for the MSc stream. And then there's also some language requirements, folks. So at Rural Roads, English is the primary language of instruction and communication. If your primary language is not English, you can meet our requirement through one of 3 ways. So we have a recognized credential from an English-speaking country, submitting an English language proficiency test score report, or completing one of our Global Learning and Language Center programs. They have some wonderful programs there. You'll see there's a link on the screen, but you could find that easily at ruralroads.ca as well. And all of this information that I'm talking about is all on our website. So don't fear, there's a lot more robust information there too. If you're wondering about how to apply, a few steps and documents to consider. So the first step here is online application fee of $136.69. And then we ask for some supporting documents. So things like official transcripts from education, a detailed resume, so going into detail about your work experience, volunteer experience, a personal statement. And what that is, I like to describe it as a cover letter if you were applying to a job almost. So detailing what do you want to get out of the program? What do you hope to bring to the program? What are your intentions? How does it relate to your personal and career goals, etc.? So again, more information on how to do that is all on our website. And then if it applies to you, the English language requirements as well. Yeah, and thanks to Andrea for popping that link in the chat. Thanks. We have some key dates as well, folks. So if you are looking at joining us in the future, of course, we hope you are. Some dates to consider. So for the MSc and MA blended version, the application deadline, it's coming up in June. June will be here before we know it, I hope, because it's real chilly in Victoria right now. So June 2nd, 2025. And then that's starting September 2nd, 2025. For the MA on campus, the application deadline is in September 9th, 2025, and the start date, March 9th, 2026. So into the future, but of course, if you are thinking of applying, there's no time like the present. So please do get those documents in, and always helps to get yourself organized ahead of time as well. And then there's some services that are available to you. My wonderful friend and colleague, Andrea, is putting some helpful links in the chat. I see she's put a link to book an enrollment advising appointment. I cannot stress that enough as a former student of Royal Roads myself. Super helpful to talk to enrollment services. So they can be reached at learn.more@royalroads.ca. So if you have any questions, concerns, if you want to help narrow down your program options, you have questions about your application, or you want to connect with our wonderful students and alumni, they can help you out. We also have our wonderful team, financial aid and award services. So if you are looking for things like loans, bursaries, I know we had some questions about scholarships. So all of that good stuff, that's available on our website as well. You can browse through the variety of scholarships and awards that we have and kind of filter them based on what applies to you. So that's a nice section to browse as well. And with that, folks, I will say a very big thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, thank you so much to Chris. Thank you to Deanna and Bojie and Rhett and Andrea, all of our wonderful colleagues here. Chris, I just want to hand the floor back to you one last time if you have any last things to wrap us up with here.
Not myself particularly. There is a couple more questions, so I'll have a look at those and see if I can answer them. So Tozin says, I have a BSc in architecture and a master's in architecture, thesis relating to climate change, but in recent times I have not been in the field of work. I'm assuming you're asking if you'd be able to apply with that background. Absolutely yes. I don't know if you're just making a comment or asking a question, but hopefully that would answer it. Totally. If you've done a master's, we consider that almost more as work experience as it relates to application, because we only look at your undergraduate degree in terms of the academic context, so that would all count. And if you've been working on things, maybe not now, but in the past, it would all count if that's the answer. But other than that, I don't have anything else to say. I'd like to give a big thank you to Bojie and Deanna for taking some time to come and join us and giving their perspective. Hopefully you found that helpful rather, and we'll look forward to seeing some of you at least on campus in the next few months or years. However long it takes you to make the decision. It's all good. We're not trying to rush you into a decision here. We're just trying to give you the information to help that process. But yeah, thank you very much for coming.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, of course, to everybody tuning in live and on the recording. We appreciate you. Of course, we hope we'll see you in a webinar next time and in the program soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.